You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Burns. Welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. Today we're going to be talking about what works today in sales. And I got my buddy Derick back on the show. It's been over a year or so since he was last on. A lot of career changes. He's back to selling IT and to IT geeks and system administrators and people who do not want to talk to salespeople. Sound familiar? It does to me. And what we're going to talk about is what does work, how to engage these people, how to get conversations started with these people. And I'm going to be applying a lot of the things I do talk about in my course. Start the conversation, get the meeting, and why it's so successful and why people are having so much luck with it. So if you're not crushing your number in 2018 and apparently only 53% of you are even making quota, I think the companies are stacking it against us right now, I think there's some games being played to keep commission expense down. So we have to be even smarter than we were before. Also, I want to make sure you're checking out pipedrive.com. That company is on fire. If you don't have a process, don't think of it as a CRM. Think of it as a sales process manager, something to keep you focused on what really matters and what's going to happen in your territory, in your market, to keep you working on the things that are going to close. So make sure you check it out. Plus, they produce great content, great ideas for salespeople, and I try and incorporate their ideas into the podcast as ideas and discussion points. Me and Derick are going to go deep into this, and what I'm seeing is a common theme through these great salespeople who are reaching out to me to be on the show is that they're connecting with customers in a different way. It's not the pitch. It's not the email. It's engaging them where they live, talking about what they care about. And that is a talent and a skill that you need to learn and a process that you need to develop. It is both a science and a skill. So we have to study the science, but practice the skill. And that's what we talk about in the course. So check that out at b2brevenue.com. And let's get into the interview with Derick. Here's Derick. Hey, Derick, welcome back to the show. As a way of getting started up, give us a little update on yourself.
Well, thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me back. Well, last time but now I'm the director of sales for all of the Americas for a company called Parallels here in Seattle, Washington, which deals specifically. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the Parallels with the Mac and Windows?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Which is it's kind of funny. That's what attracted me to them was that their product, which is the Mac. Running Windows on your Mac has got about a 92% renewal rate where, in the SaaS world where I just came from, most people would hold up a bank if they could get 92% renewal rate on their SaaS. Where they are really interested in expanding is with their other product lines. And their other product lines have to deal with Mac management and PC management across the network, virtual application delivery, those types of things. So that's kind of where they brought me on because they're very interested in the last couple of years, my experience in bringing that kind of stuff to market.
And how much of your business is inbound versus outbound? Is the product expensive enough to do outbound, cold?
Yes, it is. However, that's a really good question. So primarily historically, we have been inbound and we sell through channel partners. Yeah. And so we have that level of model. But as you know, the way things are going right now, there's the customer is asking for a simpler sales process, right? So there's now a percentage of our customers who are going direct, buying direct through the website, and there's customers that are looking at different options. There's also a big push we're doing. I would say maybe I would call it kind of educated outbound, not cold outbound, where we're looking at bringing people understanding that, like you just said, you knew Parallels from Mac or from Windows on your Mac. We're looking to educate a whole group of people that think of Parallels that way within our new product suite, which is the Mac management and the remote access server.
Cool. And so what's that sale look like? I mean, well, I mean, I wouldn't know. I mean, because I've done like enterprise stuff.
Right.
You know, the channel stuff always confused me because there's always conflict, and you know.
Well, here's kind of what the sale looks like. So what it is our ideal customer profile is an IT administrator, IT director for an organization, and that particular person hates dealing with Macs. They absolutely hate it. When somebody brings in one of those beautiful little silver laptops, they start getting all anxiety driven, because they know how hard those things are to bring on Windows networks, to manage, to push out patches, to do all that other kind of stuff. So what we do is we're educating and we're trying to provide insight to these IT managers out there that they don't have to hate Macs anymore, that they can bring them into the network and they can use Windows tools in order to manage them. Specifically utilizing our solution set. So it's a subscription-based service. So it's a yearly subscription-based service. It's direct to the IT department, and you're looking at the average kind of engagement is anywhere from $5,000 to $100,000. So you're not looking at something that is going to be multi-million-dollar enterprise.
Okay. Hey, but those people are pretty hard to get a hold of, aren't they? And they're pretty persnickety.
So that's a great. So yes. So I just spent this last week in Minneapolis, and I'm originally from the Midwest, so I love the Midwest. So I was in Minneapolis at a user group convention, and one of the things I learned about working in the Salesforce ecosystem is it's all about the user groups. It's all about the people that are utilizing the solution set, that are building these communities in different cities across the country. And as a vendor, as a supplier, as a consultant or something else, you really have to get yourself involved in the user group. So this user group, it's a yearly event in Minneapolis. They have it at the Mall of America. And so I'm sitting there, and remember, the last 3 years, I've been speaking specifically. My ICP has been specifically the VP of Sales, the Director of Sales, right? Yeah. So now that I'm back in IT sales, my ICP is now just the IT Director, the Windows Administrator, and it was like a nuclear bomb went off in my brain about what they were looking for from their sales reps, what they were looking for from their vendors, what they were looking for as far as process, as far as communication, as far as everything else like that. And it really was, 12 hours a day, 5 days last week, I did nothing but talk to end users and potential customers and current customers. And it was probably worth like a master's degree in B2B sales.
So let's dig into that, because there's a lot of people out there that do sell to that type of person and have done that switch. What did you notice? What was here's what I noticed. They think a lot of what we do to try to get them to talk to us is cute, but ineffectual. So and you're laughing, so I know you know what I'm talking about. So it's like, the videos that we create that put in emails, the interesting breakup letters that we send, all that other stuff that gets a chuckle out of them, but it doesn't get engagement. Right. And I sat there and I talked to them. I said, so what would get engagement? And they looked at me to a person. They said, vertical knowledge, vertical insight, understanding what my job is. Yeah. And how hard it is. Yeah. And they said they feel with the current model, specifically in the SaaS world, where you have SDRs and BDRs reaching out to them, trying to set meetings, that they're just not getting that. That the person they talk to initially, knows very little about their world as an IT person, about the solution set, about even the problems that the solution is supposed to fix, right? Yeah, because that model is based off of inbound, or it's based off of it all came out of Aaron Ross's book, let's face it. And right. He pretends that, Salesforce was unknown in 2003. I'm sorry, it was very well known in 1999. Because I remember it.
Because I remember that. Yeah, I was around in 1999, and so were you. And I remember that. And, and that's a kind of another thing I kind of learned after being in the sales ecosystem, present company excluded, because I love your stuff from the very beginning. 3 years ago when I started, listening to you and reading your stuff on LinkedIn and then listening to your podcast, even before you asked me to be on, one of the things I really liked is that you were always willing. It's like Churchill said, it's like if you're not willing to change your mind, you'll never change, right? Yeah. So it's the fact is as you're moving forward in this world, in this career path we call B2B sales, if the evidence of your world is showing you one thing, you need to cast away those things that aren't working and embrace something else. I really liked, you had a post earlier in April about embracing AI in order to go ahead and to help your workday, right? And to how you used to do a lot of this stuff manually, and you used to try to create this perfect pitch. I remember the words you used. You said, "I no longer suffer to try to create a perfect pitch. Now I know through AI what my customers want to talk about, what they want to hear, and I can do it specifically on a per customer basis. So my pitch for John is different than my pitch for Mary." And that's what I heard in Minneapolis. That's what they want. They want that personalized, knowledge-based, insight-driven pitch that they feel like, okay, this is someone that kind of understands what's going on. It's someone I can have a conversation with.
Right, because you're reaching out to them, and that's what people don't understand. It's like, it's not about finding the person responsible. Even when you find the person, it's not hard to find the person responsible.
No, it's easier than ever. You remember the old days. You had to.
Yeah,
right? We both read the Zig Ziglar book. You buy a box of donuts. You go to the warehouse and you feed those guys and you find out who the purchaser is. Right? You go to the loading dock. That's how you used to do it back in the day. And now it's like you just type something. You type in purchasing manager on LinkedIn, and you get, absolutely every purchasing manager in the vertical that you're searching for. And then if you invest in Navigator, you get everything else. So it's like, yeah, it's easier than ever to get that level of information. But what it's hard is to understand what they're thinking about and what they're talking about, and not just about your thing. See, I think that's where the power of
nothing about AI, your thing. Right.
Well, exactly. It's like this. It's like one of the things from this convention that we're doing right now is I'm doing something very simple that every social media manager or someone else should do is you create basically just a list of people that do that particular job on Twitter. And you just follow what they talk about. Yeah. And some of it is going to be about work, and some of it's going to be about life, and some of it's going to be about, sharing cat videos and everything else. But when you have that feed and you understand, it's like you're being, could you imagine 25 years ago if I could tell you, Brian, I can give you something that you can plug directly into the day-to-day life of your ideal customer profile.
That's it. And the problem is, and I explained this to the CEO of Nudge, because I remember around circa 2001, I was at a startup. We got a $10 million round. It was a product company or a services company turning product company. And there was 10 reps. And we literally sat down and we all came up with 10 accounts we wanted to get into. So we had 100 accounts. We put it into a spreadsheet and we sent it to everybody we know. And we asked, do you know anybody who works at this company or anybody who knows somebody who works at this company? And then we had an admin aggregate this list. And I go, that's what Nudge does for you for free today,
exactly.
Overnight. But still, it didn't tell you if any what they cared about. Today we can find the people, but what we're trying to do is trying to grab 15 minutes of their time, and they don't know why. And they're like, I'm not giving you, time is money. You're asking for money.
Yes, exactly. Time is money. You're asking for money. And quite honestly, we haven't earned the right yet to ask for that time.
At all.
I mean, I'm the first to, it's like when you send an email and that first ask of yours is a 15-minute meeting. Oh. For me, that's right up there with me getting an email about great leads. Oh, I looked at you on LinkedIn, Derick, and I think you could use our lead list. Like, have you really looked at me on LinkedIn? Because I'm pretty kind of opinionated on what I think of what you're doing. So
right. Or do you need my IT services or my SEO services? You're like,
exactly. And if you don't, do you know somebody who does? It's just a matter of. It's just literally. It's like literally just doing a junk mail drop. And so here's the thing. So it's May. It's May 18th here. I think we're talking right now. So I don't know when this will go on your iTunes and your site. But in a couple of days over there across the water, a little thing called GDPR is going to go into effect. And I know we have international offices, and there's other people that have international offices that are American companies, and we're being instructed and told specifically about how we interact with marketing, how we interact with emails and opt-ins and opt-outs and everything else like that. And it is especially for outbound, the old style of outbound. People think it's not going to hit the United States. It's a big thing. We're going to be the first because we're going to be it's kind of like I was talking to somebody in Minneapolis over the weekend where they said their GDPR specialist said if they have one person who's a remote worker in France and the entire company is in Texas, they still need to be GDPR compliant. And the regulators are going to go ahead and target the Texas company because they're an American company. So they're gonna look, they're gonna target, they're gonna find that stuff out, and that kind of stuff, that those email blasts, those things that we send, those feelers, those touchies, those feelers that we're trying to go ahead and get people to interact with us. If they don't provide value, if they don't provide something other than let's have a 15-minute meeting. It's the email equivalent of let me buy you a cup of coffee and you can tell me about your business. Right?
No, it's more like you buy me a cup of coffee and I'll tell you about my business.
Exactly.
And all that stuff is caused by, GDPR didn't come out of the woods. It came about because people were sick of getting all this spam and being, right? And the do not call list was created, for scammers. And, my phone rings at least 5 or 10 times a day. And if I don't know the ID, I don't pick it up. And I listen to the recording. It goes, if you'd like to get off our list, hit 1. And it's
right.
Like I block it. And, the problem is that we forgot what does work in sales.
Yes. Yes. So let me tell you that. So we're talking about now. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm a big proponent of AI. I think it's going to replace not only a lot of transactional stuff, but a lot of mid-level stuff as well. But I'm talking to customers here, and you know what they tell me? They tell me, these people that I want to sell my products and services to, they're telling me they want to have a conversation with me that lasts longer than a month or a quarter. They want to be my current customers want to be contacted and talked to and provided insight, but not just when they're up for renewal. Those types of things. And it's the system, this system that we've created, that we're only engaging on our terms because of our forecast and our numbers. And you had that podcast a couple weeks ago about why it's so hard to forecast and everything else like that. It's like, the reason is we're so driven by those numbers, and then if we're not making our numbers, we're stealing from the other quarter to go ahead and backfill this quarter, and we're early renewing. So people are it's like a vicious cycle. And our customers, the prospects out there, they want to talk about stuff and things. They want to talk about real things. They don't want to talk about POs being issued. They don't want to talk about, 10% discount if you buy before the end of the month and everything else like that. All these conversations that we have.
And, I sold IT forever, and I dealt with, the people that you deal with, not primarily. I was more on the development architecture side, but when I knew what their pain was, right? They had a delivery date. They had functionality and security and standards that they had to adhere to, and, building software, and anybody who deals with technology. Let's face it, how much of your day is wasted trying to get little pieces of technology to work?
Yeah.
Anybody who uses it, even your cell phone, right?
Exactly.
A good 10 to 30% of your day.
Exactly. And it's like, and that is the one, that's the one. I think you're right when you said earlier, time is money. Now, it's not only money, but that's the one thing you can't create more of. I can create more money, I can create more savings, I can create more this, that, or other. But the time I lose doing one thing or another, I'll never get back. And nobody ever laid on their deathbed and said, "Oh, I wish I would have spent more time running reports in Salesforce." Nobody ever says that. So it's like, when we leave this mortal coil, it's the things that that are. It's not these time wasting things that we're going to be thinking about. I have a question for you. So a couple, like I said, 3 years ago, I started listening to you. 4 years ago, started listening to you, started reading your stuff, and it has what you do in your industry. I think it's exploded exponentially with the number of people out there that are hanging shingles and doing, maybe not doing what you do, but talking about it and providing their quote unquote expertise. What's it like? And again, sorry for asking this quick, but what's it like being you now in, Brian Burns in this highly competitive industry right here? And how do you differentiate yourself? I'm really interested in that.
Well, if I don't really get or pursue cold opportunities anymore. I've got enough inbound, and I've moved to 100% digital. When I first left my IT sales career, I basically got sick of working for other people. I wrote a book, and the book did really good on Audible, and I did get some inbound, but most of my outbound was to VPs of sales, the people that you were selling to. Right. And basically, I would use a question like, does this sound familiar? Okay. I would call them the first month of the quarter, and I go, let's see, you just got back, you got some planning sessions, and you've got 90 days or 80 days ahead of you. The pipeline looks great. But didn't it look great 90 days ago? And I go, yeah, I know.
Right.
I know. And I go, just one question. And I'm just going to send you my book. And, I'm really looking for my network. I'm not trying to, if it does not a match, it's not a match. Where do your deals get stuck? And he goes, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. And I go, well, some deals didn't close. Well, we got a lot of no decision. And then I just drill down and down and down. And it would take at least a quarter before they would open up. And I'd stay in touch with them. And it wasn't a high pressure sale because 99% of the people in this space are silver bullet sales trainers.
Yes. Right. That's exactly. You are so spot on.
Right. Let me show you how to bring insight. And I'm like, okay, that's a skill. It can be powerful, but if you're in a beauty contest, it's differentiation. It's
right. And insight about selling aircraft parts is different than selling cosmetics. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's the amazing part of what I've seen explode in the sales enablement or sales training industry in the last couple of years. Is there's so many people out there that are now doing exactly like you said, doing that silver bullet thing. Right. They're saying this is the way to do it for everybody, and you're like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like 6 months ago, I was selling enterprise software to accountants, and now I'm selling SaaS software to IT people. And guess what? It ain't the same. It's literally not the same. It's not the same customers, not the same needs. It's not the same type of conversation. I mean, there's sales processes that I can completely engage in over email as opposed to picking up the phone and calling somebody because that's the way that particular ideal customer likes to communicate. Whereas there are others where it's like you have to, still knock on their door and have an in-person meeting. I think one of the things that I've learned over the past couple of years, because I've kind of changed my mind on a couple of different things, is I've become a little bit more all-inclusive in whatever works for your particular vertical, do it. Exactly. And don't listen to the silver bullet guy who says, hey, this is the way you got to do it. Because that's, I mean, to me, I mean, I'm not here to slap the food out of anybody's mouth. I mean, everybody's got to make a living. But the fact is that, you know, if I'm, like I said, if I'm selling aircraft parts, and you're telling me provide insight, it's like, well, that's easy enough to say, but what insight? What is, you know, it's like, oh, just insight. Then I write you a check and you go away. It's like, no, it's like, what? Right. It's like, that's it. I mean, thanks for telling me that. I appreciate you telling me that. But, you know, so I've really noticed a big proliferation of those silver bullet guys. I'm going to use that word from now on. It's like that phrase, because that is exactly what it is.
Right, because they're not looking at it as a profession or as a sport even. You know, if you wanted to learn golf, you wouldn't learn just how to drive, right? Because unless you can get a hole in the one, the drive only gets you closer to the hole. And if you wanted to learn golf, you know, and you wanted to learn it well, you know, you probably wouldn't learn it from a guy who really knows how to play tennis. Exactly. I mean, that's another thing. It's like that's the thing. Yeah. And I was having I met this one of the guys who had connected with me over LinkedIn a couple years ago, and he's a younger sales guy. He's been in a couple of companies mentoring that, and he basically said something that was really funny. He said it's not only the silver bullet guys, but it's also he discovered some of the people he was following and he was listening to on how to do sales things were lottery winners. Meaning that they had, you know, that the story of their biggest deal that got them was like a bluebird flying in the window. And it's like, he said to me, we're sitting there over dinner in Minneapolis, and he said, you know, it's like me taking advice from someone on how to make money by someone who bought a ticket at the grocery store. It's like I could do that too, but there is this element of luck that we never really talk about. And yes, we can make our own luck. And I think if you work hard, you know, good, you know, you can go ahead and make things happen for yourself. But for a lot of the quote unquote experts out there, they were right place at right time. And, you know, I think, you know, well, you mentioned, you know, not to be disparaging, but, you know, Aaron Ross and that whole time in which they were there, when there was the move from enterprise to cloud, it was really a great time and a great place to do that thing. Could they do it again in 2018? You know, would that be, you know, was that the time? Was that the place? Could they have done it 10 years before? Well, that's it, because it was like division of labor was not, discovered in 2004. I mean, I tell the story about my dad, his friends coming over after work, and their wives were their SDRs.
Yes.
Right? They were at home taking calls, making calls. And they would pull over, this is before cell phones, at a phone booth, call in and say, oh, this meeting's canceled, this got moved. And and that was it. And it was like, oh, predictable. Come on. And now everyone's using, I mean, that need for the refer me to the right person email is obsolete. You don't need that anymore with LinkedIn.
No.
What you need is to get into their world and find out what they care about, and find a way of connecting with them as a human.
Right, and connecting with them as a human. I mean, there's a great scene in a movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it, The Big Kahuna, where Danny DeVito is talking. You laugh. So Danny DeVito is talking to one of the young sales guy, Bob, and he says, you know, when he says you want to be a person, you ask somebody about their kids. You ask them because you want to know. And when you start turning that conversation, when you start shaping it to go to an end, that's when you're pitching. Yeah. So it's like there's a moment in which where they have that human connection, and then when you turn it to another level, turn to another way, you become a pitchmaster. You become someone who's asking, you know, how are your kids? Because that's what the back of the business card says on the Rolodex. Ask about the kids, and then you move forward that way. Right. So and so that whole, and I think that whole experience is what really is driving, that and technology is really driving what customers and what clients are really looking at as far as sales moving forward. I think they want, and this is it, I think they want less reps. I think they want more expert. They want more experience, more expert, more insight, more knowledge. They want longer term relationships. And they want a real easy buying process. Like once they're convinced to go, they don't want to have to go jump through hoops. They want to go to a website, do a couple points and clicks, and get everything done. I mean, that's the kind of, I think that's the level of experience they want. And I think some of us in our career path kind of suffer from a little hubris, a little bit, thinking that we're so important to the process that there's never going to not be a need for us. And I think that I learned a long time ago never to say never. And the fact is if wading into the future or walking into the future, you have to keep an open mind, and you have to understand that at the end of the day, a B2B sale is not about me. It's about the customer. And it's about what they want and what they need. And whatever book I read or whatever class I took or whatever six things to do to pitch this guy that I'm doing in order to do, that's all going to be for naught if I haven't connected in a way where that customer looks at me and goes, okay, this is something I can move forward with.
Right, because what you described in those list of 5 things was what they perceive as value. It wasn't your features, functions, speed, all that stuff that we're taught, right? It's like they want to get their job done frictionless, and they want help from somebody who can talk their language. And what I know is,
where they're.
It was, because typically we were, a 4-legged sales team. There was the sales rep who would get the meeting, and then there was the engineer, pre-sales person who would demonstrate the product. And I remember going on sales calls, and people would go like, after the call, they go, "Which one of you is a sales rep?"
Right.
And I took that as the biggest compliment.
Yes.
Because I could talk their language.
Well, so they're looking for that experience, and again, coming around full circle, what we talked about, where I was the whole week, was at this user conference, and where they're finding that expertise and that knowledge is in these user communities, on these third-party review and sites and everything else, where I said something to somebody a couple months ago, and they said, that sounds pretty good. You should make a bumper sticker. I said, B2B sales is no longer about persuasion, if it ever was. It's about proof. I think that, in the old days, we think of the patent medicine guy. He's going from town to town, and he's a slick talker, and he's a cool daddy, and he's pitching up all that stuff, and he says, drink this thing, it's going to turn you this, turn you that. He's very persuading, right? But the fact is, every single one of those guys had a mark in the audience, and that mark was the proof source. And he was the one that said, yeah, I drank that and hair grew on my head, or I did this, that, and the other. Now it was fake proof, but it was a proof source, because the persuasion alone wasn't enough. Yep. They had to turn around and see a guy with a full head of hair, and then they bought that radiator fluid or whatever it was selling in the bottles. So that, if you flash forward to 2018, what customers are looking for is a proof source. They get your pitch, they get your understanding, but they want to know that your widgets. They want to know your thing works, and you're right. It's not features and functions. It's does this solve this issue that I have, solve the challenge that I have? Does it make my life easier? Does it save me time? Does it add money to my pocket? Again, all of their end result, its end result is different. You could sell a widget to 2 different customers. You could save one 30%, and you could, of their cost, and another one you could cut half of the time it takes to do something, and it's the same widget, but it's a different value prop for them, right? Because they're individual customers, they have different needs, and that's at the end of the day, and that's the thing. So what they do is they go out and they look for people that they determine, or organizations that they determine are going to be an honest broker of that information, and so that's really, I think that kind of dovetails into your, when you're asked which one of these people is the salesman in the meeting. right? When you have the sales, you have the engineer, you have the customer support person, you have everything else. I mean, because that is a compliment. Because I can tell you, there's the word salesy in the parlance of my ICP, of my IT directors that I sell, is exactly. It's a curse word. It really is.
Right. And that's it. And the SDRs are wondering why they're not being more effective. So what their managers do is do more of it. And
yes. And
then you get laws. And then you got GDS.
Exactly. You get do more of this, and then it's a self-perpetuating, monster that you create. And then it's kind of like the person, saying, I mean, it's kind of funny. It's like, I was talking to somebody the other day, the things we do in outbound trying to track people down. If they were done to us, we'd file a restraining order. Exactly. I mean, it's like there are, and it's like, you're right. And it's like, so the answer is what? Do more? Is it send more emails? Is it, how many interesting subject lines can you create? How many, little videos, with, knowing where I went to college can you create and stuff like that? I mean, again, our customers, look at that stuff, they share it, they like it, but nobody's buying on it. Nobody's, or at least I would say nobody, but it's like, that's not what they're, because it's not what we want to, it's not about what we want to talk about. Yeah. That's the thing.
And that's it. And you're probably the fourth rep that I've had on in probably the last 4 weeks who's been leveraging either user groups, some kind of venue that's in person, that's content and context focused, not marketing, not webinar, not trade show, but like user group meetings, because these people, their days are interrupt driven. Things go wrong, they're blamed. The users aren't blaming themselves, and their lives are hard. And if you can't talk their language, they don't want to talk to you.
Right, because the last thing they need is some guy or gal in a suit, slickly talking, saying, "Let me fix all your problems, buy you steak dinner, and sign the contract." Right? That's the whole.
Yeah.
A lot of them. That's the reason they got into the trouble they did, because they bought the software or something didn't work or something else like that, or they inherited something. So they are very risk averse. Selling to the risk averse IT director nowadays, there is, you have to be personal. You have to do user groups. You have to understand them on a human level, because if you don't, you're just throwing darts at a board. You're just trying to, throw as many seeds on the ground, and hopefully one or two will sprout up where you can really kind of focus in and have a conversation with people. And then at the end of that conversation, they turn around, they say, "So what do you sell?" That's a compliment at a user group, when you can have a conversation with someone about their job and what they do.
Is how you start a sales process. Exactly.
And a half an hour later, they look at me and they go, "Derick, this has been great. So what do you sell? What do you do? Why are you here?" Exactly.
Cool. Hey, this has been awesome. I could talk to you all day. Where do people go to connect with you, Derick?
Well, they can obviously find me on LinkedIn, Derick Wyszynski on LinkedIn. Also find me on Twitter at Real Sales Advice. I'm still at Real Sales Advice. And obviously, you can find me at parallels.com. That is where I am on my mission to make Windows friendly again.
Hey, I love talking to Derick. I got to talk to him all day. But are you noticing a common theme? These are people who are reaching out to me as opposed to me reaching out to them. And I think there's a common theme that I'm sensing is that we're moving away from what hasn't changed in sales. What hasn't changed is that we're selling to people, and people don't care about us. Surprising as that might seem, they don't lose sleep over us, and they don't care about our quotas, our products, our managers, our CRM, our KPIs. What they care about is doing their job and their KPIs and their manager and getting promoted at doing what they're doing. And we've got to get over ourselves and start to get into their world and start conversations with them about what they care about. And that's really why I created the course, is because it's different when it's inbound, right? When we get inbound, when we have somebody calling us, somebody sending us a request for a question that they're suffering through and they want an answer, that's different, right? They're already engaged, they're already interested. But if they're latent meaning that they're not uncomfortable, they're happy, they're sleepy little kitties in the sun, there's no problem in their mind. We have to make them aware of the problem that they're going to face in the future. And that's kind of what I'm trying to help reps with today, because it's so hard to get access to these people and it's so hard to connect with them and engage with them. It just has changed so much because there's so many products out there and it's so easy to create new products. And there's so much noise and people are hunkering down instead of being open. And I think people are finding that these like user group events and content-rich events, not product webinar, thinly veiled events, are engaging people, talking about solving a problem, talking about how other people are solving a problem, getting your customers to become your advocates and part of your sales process. This is all kind of... is it new? No, it's not really new, but it's more important, I think. And I think it's something that we've got to try and figure out how to do, either on our own or with our teams, with our managers and our marketing folks. Or we just got to figure it out on our own. Because the old school hounding and just cadencing them to death, if that's working for you, God bless you, keep doing it. But if it isn't, we've got to become more creative and more focused on what they care about and where they hang out and what they're thinking about so that we can engage with them more. So please check out, I wrote a book on this. I'm giving it away on the website, b2brevenue.com, the numeral 2brevenue.com. And on that site, you can find all the training. If you're serious about the training and you want to know if there's a match, there's a link where you can get a 15-minute slot on my calendar. Please be serious and please have questions. I'd be happy to answer them for you if the table of contents does not answer them for you. I purposely made the table of contents a little bit oblique so that people just don't say, I can learn this on my own. Yeah, it's like you can learn to cook on your own too. It can either take 5 or 10 years or 5 or 10 months. It's up to you. Because without that feedback, without that camaraderie, without being able to show somebody your work, ask questions, see what other people are doing in a anonymous kind of sales anonymous, I should call it, essay way, you're not going to grow at the rate that you should. And let's face it, are you ahead of quota or behind quota? The year's almost half over. Essentially it is, right? Because here we are, we're moving into Memorial Day weekend here. I don't know when you're going to listen to it. It might not even be until the year is half over. And then we hit the summer doldrums that everybody forgets. For 10 years, I forgot about it. And I finally figured it out. I just mark those 2 months and I allocate those 2 months for different things, for building lists, for reestablishing my ecosystem, and try and figure out when everyone's away. And it's just a hard time of the year to get our normal stuff done. So check out the website. Hey, please connect with me on LinkedIn. If you see my content on LinkedIn, I really appreciate you sharing it. And if you take a little snapshot of you listening to the podcast, you share it on LinkedIn and tag 2 other salespeople and me. Just type in their names and me. I will email you on LinkedIn my book, The Maverick Selling Method. So it's that simple. Just screenshot a picture showing the artwork of the podcast, share it on LinkedIn, tag 2 salespeople other than yourself and me, and I will reply to you. So you'll have to be connected to me because I can only send you in mail if I'm connected to you. The Maverick Selling Method, full book in PDF format. as a thank you for doing that, sharing it out. Appreciate everybody listening. I hope you're having a great year. If you're not, let's get going. Let's have a fantastic year.